Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want you to do something with me. If you can, just for a second. I want you to picture a parade.
Okay.
It's a classic American scene, right? Maybe it's the 4th of July,
Yeah.
maybe Memorial Day. You're out on the street, it's hot, you can smell the asphalt, and you hear those drums coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see them coming around the corner. The color guard.
It's a powerful image. It really is. Crisp uniforms, solemn faces, flags snapping in the breeze. Everyone gets quiet.
Everyone stands up, yeah. Hats come off. It feels, I don't know, it feels important, official. It feels military.
It's meant to. That's the whole point of the ceremony.
Right, but here's the thing. Here's the reason we're doing this today. You sent me this stack of materials, and I've spent the last 3 days completely buried in this one document in particular. It's over 300 pages long.
I know the one.
Colors, Flags, and Ceremonial Authority. And after reading it, I've come to this really unsettling conclusion.
Which is?
Almost everything I'm picturing in that parade, it's a lie.
A lie is a strong word.
Okay, maybe not a deliberate lie, but a mistake. A profound doctrinal error. According to this manual, and others like it, probably 90% of what we see on Main Street USA, the veterans groups, the police honor guards, the mix and match uniforms, it's all technically illegal in the eyes of military doctrine.
Illegal is probably a bit much for a civilian context, but from the perspective of the U.S. Army's Drill and Ceremonies Manual,
Yes.
it's unauthorized. It's what the source material calls doctrinal pollution.
Doctrinal pollution. I love that phrase. It is so cold and precise, and it perfectly captures what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just about flag etiquette, is it? We're not going to spend an hour telling you, don't let the flag touch the ground.
No, this is much deeper. This is about a hidden language, a language of authority and power that is being spoken right in front of us at every public event, and almost no one knows how to read it.
It's like a secret code.
It absolutely is. And once you learn it, once you understand the fundamental difference between a flag and a color, you can never unsee it. You suddenly realize that a color guard isn't just a fancy way to carry flags.
It's not a delivery service.
Not at all. It's a precise legal instrument. It makes a very specific statement about who owns the power, who has the authority, and ultimately who is in charge.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We are, and I say this with love, going to ruin parades for you forever.
But in a good way.
In the best possible way.
Right.
We're giving you the decoder ring. By the end of this hour, you'll be able to watch any ceremony, any parade, and you'll know. You'll see the details, and you'll know exactly who is following the rules, who is breaking them, and more importantly, why.
And that why is the key, because these rules aren't just arbitrary. They're not there for the military to be fussy. They are there to protect the truth of what's being represented.
So let's start at square one. The absolute foundation. We have to define our terms.
Yeah.
What is a color guard? Because I'll be honest, before I read this manual, I would have just said, oh, that's the group of people marching with the flags.
And that's what 99% of people would say, that it's a marching flag display.
Right. Or, it's this sort of flexible container where you can put any symbol that feels important. Your state flag, a commemorative flag, maybe a corporate banner if they sponsored the event.
Hey, grab a pole, let's look official.
Exactly.
But doctrinally, that is fundamentally incorrect. A color guard is a formal instrument of authority. Its purpose, its only purpose, is to protect, transport, and render honors to authorized colors that represent sovereign or command authority.
Okay, let's break down that phrase because sovereign or command authority sounds really heavy.
It is. It's the whole point. And it gets to that distinction you mentioned earlier, the difference between a flag and a color. In everyday language, we use them interchangeably.
Right. I bought a new flag for the porch. The color guard is carrying the flag. Same word.
But in this world, in the world of doctrine, there is a hard, bright line between them. A flag is a piece of cloth. It can be a beautiful decoration. It can be a symbol of your heritage, your favorite sports team, a social cause. But a color, with a capital C, is a flag that has met specific legal and doctrinal criteria to be carried as a representation of command.
So let's make this concrete. If I go to the hardware store and buy a U.S. flag and hang it on my house for Memorial Day, that's a flag.
That is a flag. You are displaying it. It's a patriotic act. It's a decoration.
But if a specific designated U.S. flag is taken by a military unit, a flag that's been consecrated for this purpose, and a soldier in uniform lifts it onto a staff, in a formal formation.
It becomes the national color. And in that instant, that piece of cloth is transformed. The person holding it is no longer just a soldier holding a stick. They become an agent of that authority. They are, in that moment, representing the sovereignty of the United States of America. And that is why there are guards with rifles standing next to them. They aren't guarding a piece of cloth from being stolen. They are symbolically guarding the very authority of the nation itself.
This is the perfect entry point into the first huge concept from the source material. It's what they call the fundamental distinction, the difference between displaying a flag and carrying a flag.
This is the firewall. If you get this one concept, you understand 90% of everything else we're going to talk about. The manual literally describes it as a firewall between displaying and carrying.
To an outsider, that sounds like semantics. I hung the flag on the wall, I picked up the flag and walked with it. It's the same object, right?
Physically, yes. It's the same piece of fabric. But in terms of what it means, legally and ceremonially, it is a completely different thing. The source uses a few analogies, but think of it like a policeman's badge.
Okay.
If the badge is pinned to the officer's uniform, or maybe it's in a glass case at the police station lobby, it's on display, it's static. It represents the authority of the police department.
It's symbolic.
But if that officer takes the badge, holds it up and says, "Police, stop," that badge has now become an active instrument of state power. It's kinetic. It's an assertion of authority.
And picking up a color is the ceremonial version of holding up the badge.
Precisely. The manual puts it this way. On one side of the firewall, you have display. Display is static. It's inclusive. It's permissive. You can put almost any flag you want on a podium. You can hang them from the rafters. You can drape one over a casket. You are saying, we honor this idea. We respect this institution. It's passive.
So I can display pretty much any flag I want within reason to show respect or unity.
Exactly. But the moment you cross that firewall, the moment a person in a formation picks up that flag, puts it in a harness, and begins to march, you are now carrying. And carrying is kinetic. It's restrictive. It is an active assertion of agency.
You're not just saying we honor this. You're saying,
I am the authorized agent of the power this flag represents.
This explains so much. It explains why the manual is so obsessed with who is allowed to touch the staff. Because if I, a civilian, a podcaster, were to get my hands on the official battle colors of, say, the 82nd Airborne Division and started marching in a parade with it,
you would essentially be impersonating a federal officer in a ceremonial context. You are claiming an authority that you do not possess.
even if my intentions are pure, even if I'm doing it to be respectful, because my grandfather served in the 82nd and I want to honor him.
Your intent doesn't matter to the doctrine. Authorization matters. This brings up a term from the source that I just love, the walking it in error.
Walking it in sounds so casual.
That's the point. It describes what happens when event organizers who don't understand the firewall treat the color guard like a piece of stage crew.
Like they're just logistics.
Exactly. They think, well, we have these 5 flags backstage, the U.S. flag, the state flag, the city flag, the corporate sponsor flag, and the POW flag, and we need them on the stage. So let's just have the local ROTC kids walk them in.
Just walk them in. Like you're ordering a pizza.
Right. But you cannot use a color guard to move furniture. You are using an instrument of sovereign authority as a delivery service. And if a flag is not authorized to be a color, if it doesn't represent a sovereign or command authority, it cannot cross that firewall. It has to stay static.
So in that example, what happens to the corporate sponsor flag? Can it be in the color guard?
Absolutely not. Does Coca-Cola possess sovereign command authority? Can it declare war?
No.
Then its flag cannot be a color. It can be displayed on the stage, beautifully lit, right next to the podium, but it cannot be carried in formation.
So what if I really want to move it from the back of the room to the front?
Then you are conducting what the source calls a processional flag display.
A processional flag display. It sounds very technical, but I'm guessing that distinction is everything.
It is the whole game. A processional flag display is just what it sounds like. People moving flags in a procession. It is a display in motion. It does not render honors. It doesn't receive honors. The people carrying those flags are not guards. They're not protecting authority. They are just moving cloth from point A to point B.
So that group of people marching with a dozen different flags at the start of a parade, that might not be a color guard at all.
Most of the time, it's not. Or, more accurately, it's a doctrinally incorrect color guard trying to act like a processional display. And the error, the doctrinal pollution, happens when we dress up that processional display to look like a color guard.
You mean with the rifles and the crisp uniforms?
Yes. You put military-style guards next to a corporate banner, and you've created a lie. You have visually equated the authority of a soft drink company with the authority of the United States government. You are confusing the audience.
That is a profound point. We're essentially training people to be illiterate in this language. We're teaching the public that all symbols are equal when the entire point of military structure and ceremony is that they are absolutely not equal. There's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy. Precision is the language of the military. When you blur those lines, you lose the meaning. And when you lose the meaning of these symbols, you start to lose respect for the authority they represent.
This flows perfectly into the second part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
The source of power. We keep using this word authority. But where does it actually come from? Because, before reading this stuff, my gut would say it comes from the uniform. You see someone in a crisp military uniform, they look authoritative.
That's a common assumption. The uniform signals authority, but it doesn't create it.
Okay, so then maybe the location.
Yeah.
If you're on a Navy base, everything that happens there is automatically Navy authority.
Also a logical guess, but also incorrect. Or people think it's about the vibe of the event. It's a patriotic concert, so the authority is patriotism.
But the doctrine says no to all of that.
No. The doctrine is very clear. Authority does not come from the uniform or the location or the vibe. It comes from one place and one place only. Ownership.
Ownership. Explain that.
It's a simple rule with massive implications. A color belongs to the institution it represents. Therefore, you cannot carry a color unless that specific institution has formally authorized you to represent them.
Give me a real-world example of how that works, or how it fails.
Okay. Let's go back to that Navy base. It's federal property under the command of a Navy admiral. Now, let's say a local high school's award-winning marching band is invited on base to perform for a change of command ceremony.
Okay.
They're wearing their own sharp uniforms. They march with military precision. They look fantastic. But do they have the authority to carry the official flag of the U.S. Navy in their formation?
Based on the ownership rule, I have to say no.
Correct. They have no authority to do so. Why? Because they don't own that authority. They are guests on the base. The Navy flag, the Navy color, belongs to the Department of the Navy. It represents the authority of the Secretary of the Navy. Only authorized Navy personnel can carry it as a representation of that specific command.
You can't just borrow someone else's authority because you happen to be standing in their house.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this concept of ownership and authorization is what leads us to the formal classifications. The source material breaks all color guards into 4 distinct categories, and this is vital. You cannot mix and match them. This is where most parades completely fall apart.
All right, let's go through them. I think this will help people start to categorize what they're actually seeing. What's number 1?
Number 1 is the regulation drill color guard. This is the most basic, most rigid form. It's strictly military, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, and so on. They follow their services drill and ceremonies manual to the letter, down to the angle of the staff, the number of steps per minute. It's standardized, it's robotic, and it's purely functional.
This is what you'd see for a routine ceremony on a military post.
Exactly. Then you have number 2, the ceremonial drill color guard. These are the specialists. Think of the old guard in Washington, D.C., the ones who perform funerals at Arlington National Cemetery. They have advanced, specific training for high-visibility state and public events.
So they're still military, but with more flair.
A little. They're still governed by strict doctrine, but it's a different, more elaborate version of that doctrine. They might move slower, their movements might be more exaggerated for dramatic effect, but it's all authorized. It's still military.
Got it. What's the third category?
Civil authority. This is your first responders. Police departments, fire departments, emergency services. This is a crucial distinction. They represent civil power, not military command. A police honor guard represents the authority of the city, the county, or the state. They are a legitimate, authorized color guard, but they are a different type of authority.
And the last one, number 4.
Informal or non-doctrinal. This is the Wild West. This is the danger zone. These are teams that operate on what they call tradition, which usually just means how the last guy did it, or they operate on imitation.
So like a local civic club or maybe Boy Scout troop?
Exactly. Or even a veterans organization that isn't operating under a specific DoD tasking. This is where most of the errors happen, because they are usually just copying what they think they saw the military do on TV without understanding any of the underlying rules of ownership or authority.
And the big takeaway is that these 4 lanes must be kept separate.
You cannot swerve between them. A regulation guard from a local Army Reserve unit can't just decide to do a fancy rifle toss they saw a ceremonial guard do. And a civil authority police guard shouldn't be using Army drill manuals because they don't represent the Army.
Speaking of different rules, this brings me to a section in the manual that just blew my mind. It's the difference, not just a rivalry, but a completely different philosophical and legal operating system between the Army and the Navy. I, like many people, just assumed the military had one big rule book for flags.
Oh, not even close. It's not just a different rule book, it's a different legal reality. The source calls it the land versus sea doctrine, and it explains so many of the apparent contradictions you see in ceremonies.
Okay, break that down for me. How does an Army soldier see a flag differently than a Navy sailor?
It all comes down to their relationship with the land itself. The land services, that's the Army, the Air Force, and now the Space Force. Their authority has always been what the doctrine calls layered.
Layered.
Think about the history of armies. They are raised from the land. The original American military was a series of state militias. Even today, the National Guard is a state-level military force until it's federalized by the president. If you are a captain in the Texas National Guard, you have 2 bosses. You answer to the governor of Texas, and you answer to the president of the United States.
It's like you have dual citizenship, ceremonially speaking.
That's a great way to think about it. You have this layered authority. Because of that deep connection to the states, Army doctrine and Air Force doctrine, since they grew out of the Army, is very comfortable with the idea of representing state identity within a federal formation.
So an Army color guard can carry the Texas flag right next to the U.S. flag?
Yes, if authorized, because that soldier literally represents both. The state flag, in that context, becomes an organizational color, representing the state-based component of that Army unit.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Now contrast that with the Navy.
Now look at the sea services. The Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard. Their authority is singular and federal. A ship has no state identity. When the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz leaves port in Washington state and sails into the Pacific Ocean, is it still part of Washington?
No, of course not. It's its own thing.
It is a floating piece of federal sovereign territory. It's globally deployable. It has no tie to the land. A Marine Expeditionary Unit doesn't represent California when it deploys. It represents the United States.
So they don't have that state layer of authority.
Not at all. They are exclusively and singularly federal. And as a result, the doctrine for the sea services generally prohibits carrying state flags within a color guard.
Wow.
It's seen as a contradiction. For a Marine to carry the flag of Arizona would be to represent an authority that is not in his or her chain of command. It would pollute the singular federal symbolism of the formation.
So if you see a Marine Corps color guard in a parade carrying a state flag, that's almost certainly a mistake.
Almost certainly a doctrinal violation. They might love their home state, but they don't represent it ceremonially. Now, the Navy does have a solution for this if they want to honor the states.
What do they do?
They use what's called a massed flag formation. If it's a big event and they want to show all 50 state flags, they'll have a completely separate group of sailors carry them. It's a grand procession, but it's kept physically and ceremonially separate from the actual color guard.
So it's a processional display.
It's a massive processional display. They keep the display flags away from the colors to maintain that symbolic purity. It's a visual separation of powers.
It's constitutional law, choreographed and put on display in a parade. That is incredible.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, I feel like we have a good grasp of the foundational rules. Now let's get into the spicy stuff. Part 3. The controversies, the myths, the things that everyone thinks are correct, but, according to the doctrine, are violations.
These are the things that will get you angry comments on a YouTube video of a parade.
And the biggest one, the one that I was genuinely shocked by, and to be honest, it made me a little uncomfortable at first, is the POWMIA flag.
This is the third rail of ceremonial drill. It's the most common point of friction.
Of course it is. That flag is everywhere. It's mandated by law to fly over the White House, the Capitol, post offices. That black and white silhouette of the prisoner of war, you are not forgotten. For a lot of people, especially veterans, that flag is sacred.
It is, and it's important to start by saying the doctrine does not disrespect the flag or the cause it represents. The law mandates it be displayed. But here we are again, back at that firewall.
It's authorized for display, not for carriage.
Precisely. The doctrine is unbelievably strict on this point. And I know this can sound harsh to people, but just follow the logic we've established. What does the POWMIA flag represent?
It represents our commitment to bring home and account for our missing service members. It represents remembrance.
Exactly. Remembrance. A solemn concern, a national promise. But does it represent command authority?
No.
Who is the commander of the POWMIA flag? Who is the sovereign?
Well, no one. It represents the missing themselves.
It represents a group of people, it represents a memory, a tragedy, and a hope. But it does not represent a chain of command. There is no general of the POWMIA. There is no Department of Missing Persons that issues orders through that flag.
So when a color guard carries it, what are they inadvertently saying according to the doctrine?
They are saying we, this formation, are subordinated to the authority of this flag. And doctrinally, that is an impossible statement. You cannot take orders from a memory.
That is a heartbreakingly logical way to put it. But my brain is fighting it because I feel like I've seen it 1,000 times. Veterans groups, especially, carry it in every single parade.
You have, and every single time they do that, from a strict military doctrinal standpoint, they are either conducting a processional display that is incorrectly formatted to look like a color guard, or they are simply violating the rules of what a color guard is.
Is there any exception at all? Anytime it's allowed?
There is one, exactly one. The manual states it can be carried as a personal color at the funeral of a former prisoner of war.
A personal color. Like a medieval knight's banner.
That's the perfect analogy. In that one specific moment, the flag ceases to represent the abstract idea of all POWs and instead represents that specific person in the casket. That is the only time it is authorized to be kinetic.
So, to be crystal clear, it's not about disrespecting the symbol.
Not in the slightest. No one is saying the flag isn't important. The expert analysis in the manual is about category. It belongs in a place of high honor in a static display. On a flagpole, on a stage, beautifully presented. It does not belong in a kinetic formation that signals I am in command, because it is a flag of remembrance, not authority.
It's a category error.
The most common and emotionally charged category error there is.
Okay, let's move to myth number 2. Bayonets. I have to admit, I think fixed bayonets look incredibly cool. They look fierce. You see a guard marching with them and you think, okay, these guys mean business.
It is a very powerful image visually. But modern doctrine across the services prohibits it for ceremonial color guards.
Why? Isn't the whole point of the guard part to guard the colors? Wouldn't a weapon help?
It goes back to historical context versus modern purpose. In the Civil War, the color guard was a tactical element on the battlefield. The flag was literally the command and control node for the regiment. It was how you rallied the troops. So the color sergeant and his guards had to physically fight to defend that flag.
So they needed bayonets to stab people who tried to grab the flag.
Exactly. It was a combat role. But what is a color guard today? We don't rally on the flag in battle anymore. We have radios and GPS. Today's color guard is a non-combatant ceremonial element.
And fixing bayonets sends a combat signal.
It signals combat readiness or lethal intent. And that directly contradicts the peaceful ceremonial purpose of a parade or an indoor presentation. You're at a high school football game, not storming a trench. Plus, there's a huge practical safety issue.
Right.
You're doing complex drill movements in a tight formation, often in crowded spaces. Having razor-sharp 10-inch blades fixed to the end of rifles is just an unnecessary risk, waiting for a tragic accident.
So if you see a group with fixed bayonets today, what are you likely looking at?
You're likely looking at a historical reenactment group, which is perfectly appropriate, or you're looking at a non-doctrinal team that is choosing to look tough without understanding the symbolic contradiction they're creating.
Got it. Myth number 3, and this is another big one I see all the time. Joint color guards. I'm thinking of the Super Bowl or a major national event. You'll see a line of service members, an Army soldier, a Marine, a sailor, an airman, maybe a police officer and a firefighter too. It looks like this wonderful Team America moment.
It looks nice. It's a great photo op. But doctrinally, it's a minefield. The word joint in a military context has a very specific legal meaning.
It doesn't just mean a mix of everybody we invited.
No, it means multiple U.S. military services operating under the same unified federal authority.
So Army and Navy together can be a joint color guard.
Yes, because they both ultimately answer to the same person, the president. But you cannot, under any circumstances, mix military and civil authority in one color guard.
You cannot have a soldier and a police officer in the same guard. Why not?
Because they answer to different sovereigns. The soldier answers to the federal government. The police officer answers to the mayor or the governor. By putting them in the same formation, guarding the same set of colors, you are creating a visual fiction. You are implying a unified chain of command that does not exist. It dangerously blurs the line between military power and civil law enforcement.
The Posse Comitatus Act in ceremonial form.
You could see it that way, yes. So they can march one after another in the same parade. The military guard goes first, then the police guard, but they cannot be integrated.
And even when you have a legitimate joint military guard, there are very strict rules, right?
Oh, incredibly strict. Seniority is paramount. The U.S. Army is the senior service, established in 1775. Therefore, the Army representative always takes the position of honor, which is the far right of the line. And the equipment has to be standardized, or at least compatible.
You mentioned this earlier. You can't have mismatched gear.
Right. You can't have a Navy sailor carrying a staff with a battle axe finial on top, standing next to an Army soldier with a spearhead finial, unless it's a specifically authorized joint command context that allows for it. Generally, for joint guards, everyone defaults to the Army-style spearhead for uniformity.
This is a perfect transition to part 4. Who can carry what? We've touched on this with the different authorities, but let's get really specific, starting with civilians and veterans.
And this is where we have to have a difficult but doctrinally necessary conversation about what veteran status means ceremonially.
Lay it on me. I think a lot of people will find this challenging.
There's a powerful and understandable belief, once a Marine, always a Marine. I served my country for 20 years. I have the right to carry that flag. And from a moral and emotional standpoint, that is absolutely true. But from a doctrinal standpoint, veteran status does not confer current military authority.
Oof, that's a sharp distinction.
It is, but it's a critical one. Think about it legally. If you are retired from the military, you are, by definition, a civilian. You are no longer in the active chain of command. A retired general cannot walk onto a base and give a legal order to an active duty private.
Because he no longer possesses that authority.
He no longer possesses it. Therefore, since he cannot exercise active authority, he cannot ceremonially represent that active authority.
So when my local VFW or American Legion post marches in the Memorial Day Parade, what are they doctrinally?
The source material is very clear. In a normal parade, a veteran group is a civilian organization voluntarily adhering to military standards. They are civilians, honored civilians, respected civilians, but civilians nonetheless.
So what flag should they be carrying?
They should, first and foremost, carry their own organization's color. The flag of the veterans of foreign wars. The flag of the American Legion. That is the authority they currently represent. Technically, they should not be carrying the official active duty service colors like the flag of the U.S. Army with all its battle streamers, because they do not represent the current U.S. Army.
Is there any time when that changes? When veterans can act with military authority?
Yes. There is one major exception. It's called the tasking rule. Veterans can, and often do, act as official agents of the federal government when they are formally tasked by the Department of Defense to perform military funeral honors.
So if the local Army base is overwhelmed and they call the VFW and say, we need you to provide a rifle team and a flag detail for this veteran's funeral.
For the duration of that specific mission, for that hour, they are operating under federal authority. They are official representatives. But the moment that funeral is over and they drive back to their post home, they revert to being a civilian organization.
That is incredibly clear. What about first responders? Police and fire. We said they are civil authority. What's the most common error they make?
The error is mimicry. They often look to the military as the gold standard of drill and ceremony, because the military has been doing it for centuries and looks incredibly sharp. So you see police honor guards trying to march exactly like the Marine Corps silent drill platoon, or using military-specific equipment.
Like the Army spearhead on their flagpoles.
Exactly. But they aren't the Army. They represent civil authority, and they should be proud of that. It's a different but equally honorable tradition. The fix is so simple. Represent who you are. Carry the U.S. flag, your state flag, and your department flag. Use civil symbols. A police honor guard that is crisp, professional and true to its own identity, is far more dignified than one that is poorly imitating the military.
Okay, last one in this category. Foreign and tribal flags. Can an American color guard carry the flag of, say, Mexico?
Not in an authoritative sense. Again, firewall. Foreign flags can be displayed freely. If a French dignitary is visiting, you can line the driveway with French flags. That's a sign of respect. But for an American military guard to carry the French flag implies an alliance or a legal relationship that is governed by incredibly strict international protocol.
So what if they do it anyway?
Then the American Guard is not acting as a color guard for that flag. They are merely performing a processional display. They are acting as a courtesy escort for a guest symbol. They aren't representing the authority of France.
And tribal flags from Native American nations.
They are treated similarly to foreign flags. Recognized tribal nations are sovereign nations. Military doctrine generally doesn't authorize carrying their flags in a standard U.S. military color guard unless there's a very specific context, maybe at an event on tribal land where a state's National Guard has a specific partnership. It's complex and requires authorization.
It really all comes back to that simple question. Are you just showing this thing, or are you claiming to speak for it?
That is the entire ballgame right there.
Okay, let's nerd out for a minute on the gear. Part 5. Equipment. Because the details on the equipment itself are identifiers. You mentioned a battle axe earlier, and I need to know what to look for when I'm watching a parade now.
The details absolutely matter. Let's start at the very top of the flagpole. The decorative metal piece is called a finial.
And I always assumed it was just, a pretty decoration, like a hood ornament.
Not at all. It's an identifier of the organization. And the most common one you see, the spread eagle, is also the most misused. The source actually calls it a widely sold and widely misused item.
But it looks so official, so patriotic. I think of it as the default.
Everyone does. But doctrinally, the spread eagle is the finial of the President of the United States and, by extension, federal civilian agencies. It is rare and specific. It is not the military default. The default for the U.S. Army is the spearhead.
The spear, simple, looks like a weapon.
Exactly. And the spear, or sometimes a flattened version called the spade, is the universal joint finial. If you have a joint guard with multiple services, everyone should be using a spearhead for uniformity. It's the common denominator.
And the Navy has a battle axe.
The Navy and the Coast Guard use the battle axe finial. It looks like a medieval halberd blade. It's incredibly cool looking, but it is exclusive to the sea services. You should never see a battle axe on top of an Army flag. That's like putting a ship's anchor on a tank. It's a category error.
What about the gold fringe around the edge of the flag? This is a huge topic for internet conspiracy theories.
Size, yes. The whole Admiralty Court gold fringe theory. If the flag in the courtroom has gold fringe, it's a military court and the Constitution doesn't apply.
Laughs. I've definitely heard that one.
The manual debunks this, not from a legal standpoint, but from a purely doctrinal one. It's very simple. Land Services, Army, and Air Force traditionally use fringe on their organizational colors carried in ceremonies. It's just a decorative tradition. Sea Services, Navy, and Marines traditionally do not use fringe on their colors. They prefer a clean, simple edge.
So it's just a difference in taste, essentially.
A difference in service tradition. The big doctrinal error isn't the fringe itself. It's when a unit takes an outdoor flag, a flag with grommets, the metal rings used to clip it to a rope, and puts it on an indoor ceremonial staff and carries it in a parade.
Why is that wrong?
The source calls it misclassification. You are taking a flag designed to be flown from a tall mast in the wind and forcing it into a role it wasn't made for. It looks sloppy, it hangs poorly, and it's technically incorrect. Ceremonial colors are made differently, mounted directly to the staff.
Okay, last piece of gear. Swords and sabers. We talked about no bayonets. What about an officer with the sword?
Generally, a hard NO for the members of a color guard.
Why?
The guards carry rifles for the symbolic act of guarding. A sword or saber is an emblem of command, worn by an officer. So the commander of the entire parade formation might carry a sword, but the NCOs and soldiers whose job is to guard the colors should be carrying rifles.
Is there ever an exception?
The big one is the Marine Corps mounted color guard. They're on horseback. Historically, cavalry units were armed with sabers. So in that specific historical reenactment context, it is absolutely correct. But for your local high school JROTC team, leave the sword for the drill team commander, not the color guard.
This has been a mountain of rules, a mountain of detail. And for you listening, this might feel a little overwhelming. You might be thinking, Great. Now I'm just going to be the annoying guy at the parade pointing out all the mistakes.
That is the risk, yes. You become the ceremony critic.
So let's get to part 6. How do we make this practical? How do we solve disputes? The source gives us a brilliant, simple framework, the 3 questions test.
This is your diagnostic toolkit. If you are watching a ceremony and something just feels off, or if you are part of a group planning a ceremony and people start arguing about, well, we've always done it this way, you stop and ask these 3 questions.
Okay, what is question number 1?
Who owns the color? Is it owned by the U.S. Army? Is it owned by the VFW Post 123? Is it owned by the city of Springfield? Because remember, ownership dictates the rules you have to follow.
Simple enough. Question number 2.
What authority is being represented? Is this formation representing sovereign authority, like the nation itself? Is it representing command authority, like a specific military unit? Or is it just representing affiliation, like membership in a club? If the answer is just affiliation, that flag probably does not belong in the color guard.
And the final question, number 3.
Which doctrine governs this formation? Are we choosing to follow U.S. Army Training Circular 321.5? Are we following the Marine Corps Order on Drill and Ceremonies, the flag code? Or are we just making it up as we go along? You have to pick a rule book.
I love that. Pick a rule book. You can't show up to a baseball game and demand to use football rules.
You have to decide which game you are playing. And once you've chosen, you stick to that game's rules.
What are the human element, the awkward conversations? The source has a great section on what it calls the polite refusal.
This is maybe the most practical advice in the whole manual, especially for anyone who has to organize a public event. Let's use that classic example. A Gold Star mother comes to you before a Memorial Day event. Her son was killed in action. She wants your military color guard to carry the Purple Heart flag to honor him.
It sounds absolutely heartless to say no to that.
It does. Your instinct is to say yes immediately. But the Purple Heart flag, like the POW flag, is a flag of remembrance, not command. So the strategy is you do not say, no, that's disrespectful, because her intention is the opposite of disrespectful.
So what do you say?
You say, ma'am, that's a beautiful way to honor your son. Unfortunately, because of military regulations, we can't carry it in the kinetic formation. It's a classification error.
Classification error. That takes the emotion out of it. It makes it an objective, bureaucratic problem, not a personal rejection.
It depersonalizes it. And then, and this is the critical step, you immediately offer the alternative. The static display.
The static display.
You say what we can do and what we would be honored to do is place the Purple Heart flag on a beautiful, ornate stand right next to the podium on stage. It will be visible and honored throughout the entire ceremony.
So the flag is still honored, her son is still honored, but the rules of the guard aren't broken. It's a win-win.
It's the perfect solution. It respects both the emotion and the doctrine. And the source gives us a mantra for this entire concept, and I think it's just brilliant. It's honor does not require motion.
Honor does not require motion. That is a powerful line. Just because you aren't marching with something doesn't mean you aren't respecting it.
Exactly. Sometimes placing something in a position of high honor and leaving it in stillness is the most respectful act of all.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, let's try to summarize what this all means for us, for you watching and listening. We started with this idea of color guards being a kind of hidden language.
And I hope after this hour, that language is a little less hidden. We've shown that color guards are not just flags on sticks. They are living, breathing diagrams of legal authority. They show us, non-verbally, who answers to whom and where the legitimate power in a society lies.
And the biggest takeaway for me personally is that precision is the highest form of respect. This isn't about being a fussy rulemonger. It's about caring enough about the institutions these symbols represent to get the details right.
If you truly respect the U.S. Army, you will follow the U.S. Army's rules for its symbols. It's that straightforward.
And that fundamental distinction, the display versus carry firewall, that is going to stick with me every time I see a flag from now on.
It changes how you see everything. Once you grasp that picking up a flag and moving with it is a claim of agency, a claim of authority, you understand why we have to be so incredibly careful about who we allow to do it.
So, with that, we want to leave you with our final provocative thought. The next time you're at a parade, maybe it's this coming holiday weekend, don't just stand and wave. Look closer. Use the decoder ring we've given you.
Look at the finials on top of the staffs. Are they spears, eagles, battle axes? Look at the mix of uniforms. Is that a legitimate joint guard under federal command, or is it a mishmash of different authorities that looks nice but means nothing?
And ask yourself that fundamental question. Am I looking at a true color guard that is representing sovereign or command authority? Or am I just watching a processional display that's pretending to be one?
The difference isn't just in some dusty old manual. It's in the very meaning of the ceremony itself.
Keep learning, keep looking, and respect the code. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.